Across the fence, education, technology, and specialized equipment. It's all part of UVM Extension's work to improve our water quality. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. In June of 2015, Vermont's new water quality legislation was signed into law by Governor Shumlin. The law focuses on reducing the amount of pollution in our lakes, rivers, and streams. Agriculture is one of the many sectors in Vermont that it impacts our water quality. So today we're going to learn about efforts to reduce agricultural runoff and improve the quality of our waterways. Joining me is Dan Lerner. Dan is the Associate Dean of UVM Extension and the Director for Faculty and Programs. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Now, what is Extension's role in improving Vermont's water quality?
Well, we work very closely with farmers around the state on site to bring them new information. It's part of our land grant mission. The university is a home for research, and we bring that research to the farms and help people with their knowledge of what to do on farms, adopting best practices, technical assistance, and all of that kind of education.
Mm-hmm. And it's really important to you to bring it to the farm because it's very hands-on for Extension.
It's very hands-on. That's the way that we work. We're located all around the state, as you may know, and we're working with farmers in impacted areas all over.
Well, we're going to take a few minutes now to see the research-based education that you're talking about. Here's Across the Fence's Keith Silva.
Even in winter, there's something growing in this field. Tucked under a blanket of snow is a crop of winter rye. It's what's called a cover crop, and it's one of the best tools and best practices to curb agricultural runoff and improve water quality.
Our goal is to have a living, growing plant 12 months a year. That's the best case scenario. So we're looking for erosion control, which means you need to have the soil surface covered to sort of intercept raindrops. We're looking for nutrient cycling so that there's something there capturing sunlight and utilizing the nutrients in the soil and holding it in the plant material. And then when you go to plant your next crop, it's more, you haven't lost it to the environment.
UVM Extension has tasked faculty and staff across the state to conduct research, improve practices, and develop solutions like cover cropping to enhance soil health and better water quality. Heather Darby directs Extension's Northwest Crop and Soils program.
When I started in Extension in 2003, I can bring you to the one field in the county that was cover cropped. And I remember talking to that farmer saying, why are you doing this? I want to do this. I learned about this in college, you know. I want everybody to do this, but nobody's doing it. And why are you doing it? And now, you know, there's thousands of acres in cover cropping. And that's really just changed over the last probably 2 to 3 years. And that's really exciting because now when you drive through Vermont in the fall, you don't see a lot of brown fields where the corn's been removed. You see green, and they're not weeds growing. You know, they're a soil protector, you know, a crop really, just a different kind.
The best corn we had on the whole farm was across the road.
Tony Pouliot is a dairy farmer in Westford.
There's two major benefits to the cover crop. One is a stabilization of our soils. Don't lose what you got. And then on top of it, these plants are taking up nutrients that are in the soil. So next spring comes around, there's less volatilization, there's less precipitation. The nutrients are staying in the soil. They're staying in the plant. So next year, this stuff, when we till it in, is actually a natural fertilizer. You get somebody like Heather and her staff, 2 days we had it all figured out and it was spread. Without people like her that's had experience with this stuff, it's a shot in the dark. This utterly could have failed without somebody there saying, no, we've tried that, don't use this, try this instead. So you need somebody to shine a light in the direction you need to head, and then you need to go find the light switch and turn it on.
A cover crop needs to be planted right after harvest or immediately after planting a cash crop. This timing makes for a tight window for farmers to manage. To keep these windows open longer, UVM Extension is using a piece of equipment that stands out in any field at any time.
They call it a Highboy. It's a high clearance spray rig that's been modified to spray cover crop seed onto corn crops, standing corn crops. It's about 6'3" to 6'4" under the belly, and then the booms run about 9 feet in the air. It just drives over the corn. The corn just bends down and then stands back up, UVM and the agriculture community is working very hard to try to address the issues with the lake. Farmers have $500 to $700 per acre invested in a corn crop that they're letting UVM drive a machine that they've never seen before over the top of. And there's risk involved with that, and they're taking that risk on to try to do their part. Farmers are very adamant about contributing to the solution, and the farmer letting us do this on a lot of acres to try to figure out what works best is a testament to their willingness to participate in the solution with the lake.
Cover cropping doesn't always require such a high-tech approach. Kirsten Workman is investigating interseeding a cover crop by hand in a stand of soybeans. This test plot is at the Nichols Farm in Charlotte.
All the farmers that I've worked with are interested in being part of the solution, not part of the problem. I don't think any farmer wants to be part of the problem in Lake Champlain. So what we're trying to do is identify practices that make sense for water quality and soil health, but don't mortgage the farmer's productivity or bottom line. So as we measure these things, we're not just looking at how well the cover crop performs, we're also looking at how does it impact the cropping practices and yield that the farmer is trying to accomplish, and what does it cost?
Because of Vermont's topography and geology, Lake Champlain and the Champlain watershed have become the epicenter for concerns over water quality.
Mark this edge. So cover crops and reduced tillage and good nutrient management planning are really the backbone to our water quality best management practices when it comes to Lake Champlain and excess phosphorus. If we can keep that phosphorus in the field and the nitrogen and the potassium in the field and have it fertilize a crop and have high yielding cash crops that then take up that phosphorus and nitrogen and potassium, we'll keep it from then getting into our watershed. Every field is going to drain somewhere, and wherever there's low spots, if you have erosion, then that soil is going to move off the field, probably into a ditch, or if there's a stream nearby, if you're right next to a stream or a river, and then all of that then eventually ends up downstream. And then eventually on this side of Vermont ends up in the lake. If you're on the Connecticut River side, it goes the other way.
In our environment here, at least, it behaves as an annual. The seed head.
In the Connecticut River Valley, UVM Extension agronomist Dan Hudson encourages farmers to use Italian ryegrass as both a cover crop and a replacement crop in rotational planting.
One of my main goals is to help farmers produce higher yields of crops with higher quality at a lower cost. So this fits into that. If somebody has really good corn ground, they tend to want to leave it in corn because there aren't that many acres of really good corn. So if they're going to rotate away from corn for any amount of time, which is a good agronomic practice, a lot of people would prefer to do that for a shorter time rather than a longer time. And so Italian ryegrass, because it's excellent feed that yields a lot, if you manage it properly, it makes a good rotational crop with corn. And I'm sure I broke off
Paul Doughton is a dairy farmer from Barnard and a member of the Agrimark Board of Directors, which oversees the Cabot Creamery Co-op.
The new Water Quality Act that was passed by the legislature in the spring is more centered towards small farms. The larger and the medium farms are already being regulated, but the small farms are not really being regulated. And we need to make sure they're aware of these regulations. Just looking at the practices that are being followed on these fields, growing this Italian ryegrass or interseeding your fields with cover crop, shows that farmers are looking at new ways of being able to enhance water quality. We are stewards of the land, and we want to make sure that the land in the next generation is higher quality than it was when we started.
Rhonda Goodrich farms on Mollybrook Farm, a 100-cow Jersey farm in Cabot.
We've been working with UVM for years, and I think one of the biggest things that they offer, or one of the most important pieces that they offer, is they're able to get around and talk to all farmers, and they do the sharing between us that we don't have time to do. So even if you're a little more familiar with the Italian ryegrass or the soil compacted soil, getting to chat with some of the UVM staff and other farmers, that's always a huge opportunity. And the UVM extension staff sharing what they've learned from other farmers. Huge. New ideas, can't go wrong.
The water quality issues facing Vermont won't be solved overnight. It's going to take planning, cooperation, and the will to keep improving and to keep trying.
We're trying to experiment and fail first so that the farmer we don't give them bad advice and they do it on 100 acres and they fail on 100 acres. I'd rather try something, fail on, 1,000 square feet, and then as we learn, then we're seeing farmers adopt new things. So I feel like our job in Extension is to find farmers who are willing to take a couple risks and try stuff with us, and then try things, tweak them, and as we learn, then have them be adopted on larger and larger acreages.
From the shores of Lake Champlain to the banks of the Connecticut River, UVM Extension is committed to finding answers to Vermont's water quality issues. In Burlington, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Well, thank you, Keith. Here in the studio, I'm with Dan Lerner, the Associate Dean of UVM Extension, and you're part of Extension's leadership team. And as you travel around the state, what do you hear from folks about water quality?
I think first that everyone's aware of the challenge, that there's no one who doesn't know that we have a challenge with Lake Champlain and on the Connecticut River side as well. And as you talk with farmers in particular, they really want to do the right thing. Many of them will say, hey, I'm a steward of the land. I think we heard that in the video, actually. And they want to do the right thing when it comes to soil conservation and protecting our bodies of water. They also have businesses to run. And so I think we've got a good role to play there in helping them advance and develop their farm businesses while at the same time meeting some environmental goals and trying to address the challenge of pollution in the lake.
Because you can do both.
You can do both, absolutely.
So it's clear from the video that Extension is working directly with the farmers, as you mentioned. Are there other partners who are involved in improving water quality? Yeah,
absolutely. Certainly the Agency of Ag, the Agency of Natural Resources, the Vermont Association for Conservation Districts, NRCS. Those are just a few of the key players who are working with us in many examples to address the challenges.
Now, we talked a little bit about the fact that these regulations that are being written now by the legislature are for smaller farms. So basically anybody who is farming is going to have to be paying attention to what's going on.
They absolutely are, and so the legislature last year passed Act 64, and the Agency of Ag has been writing the rules to go with that, and UVM Extension and others in the state have been involved in providing comment on what they're called the required ag practices. So it's a two-way street. There's a lot of sharing of information as the rules get shaped up, and we hope to be helping the agency develop good rules that'll work for farmers.
Now, where does some of the funding for water quality improvements come from, and how do you know whether Extension is having a positive impact?
Well, the funding comes from a variety of sources. UVM Extension does have its own funding through the state and federal channels, and we put some of that money into this work, quite a bit of that money into this work. But we're also able to attract money from some of our partners through grants and contracts. So NRCS in particular has been very supportive of water quality work on the Lake Champlain side of the state. There's a program called RCPP, Resource Conservation Partnership Program. It's a federal program that's run through NRCS that's helping us do water quality work on both sides of the state, Connecticut River and the lake. The USDA itself provides individual grants, and some of the folks you saw in the video have gotten those grants, and those grants help us build a team and build programs that will help farmers address these challenges. And the Agency of Ag and Agency of Natural Resources. It's a long list.
And how about making a positive impact?
Well, that's very important. We don't want to do anything that's not meaningful, and we're careful about the kinds of work that we take on. So our faculty and our staff develop plans through the year and then report their activities to those plans, and when they do that, they gather data that we can share with the public and share with you. And I actually brought a couple numbers with me today.
Sure.
You might be interested to know, just these are numbers from 2015, 2,500 acres of cover cropping, which wasn't happening 5 years ago. I think Heather Darby spoke about this issue in the video. 239 conservational practices on 140 farms, and those are things that reduce soil erosion and runoff. We keep very close track of that to make sure that the work that we're doing is meaningful, that it has impact, and that it's working for Vermont.
All right, well, you can learn more about water quality work being done by UVM Extension by visiting the website. It's there on your screen. It's uvm.edu/extension/agriculture. Then click on the link to crops, soils, and pasture. We'll leave that information on the screen while I share with you that we'll be highlighting water quality improvements in Vermont throughout the coming months. Again, for more information on the work being done by UVM Extension, you can check the website that's on your screen. Dan, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.